All right, everybody, I appreciate you all being here. Thank you all so much for coming. My name's Marcus. I was with Near Foundation for 3.5 years, part of the community team. Um, and I'm welcoming here Illia today to talk about community on Near. This is going to be a pretty laid-back session. I'll open up the floor for feedback, for questions from you all as well if you have anything. I prepared a list of questions as well, talking about some of the impacts of community in Web3 today, community in Near over the years, and maybe where Illia sees things going with the new AI focus. I'll kick things off. Or Ilya, do you want to provide a quick introduction, or I don't think you
Yeah, I
need
mean,
one.
hey everyone. Well, if you missed my session earlier, yeah, so I'm Illia, I'm co-founder of Near. I'm excited to be here. I know like a bunch of people have been kind of asking questions as well as giving some feedback across DMs and Twitter. So wanted to make this kind of an open session, let people to ask questions directly, as well as if you have suggestions or ideas that we can incorporate, or you can share it to other people who may be able to do them, because it is effectively a decentralized ecosystem with a lot of different people doing different things. And part of it is also for me to kind of share some of the more thinking behind how we're approaching some of these problems.
So as we know today, in Web3 compared to traditional industries, where the user base is the force multiplier, in Web3 community is really the driving factor. It just goes without saying that we're in a very early period. People are really motivated. The attention span is really short. So moving forward, as we kind of reach towards mass adoption, all these new primitives, are kind of deploying. Do you feel that this is going to continue to be the case? Do you feel that community is still going to be that force multiplier, or do you feel like we're going to transition more to the user model?
So I think there's like few different things. I think the users are still there, and they are, I mean, extremely important. They are the ones like for whom this is a utility and they're using. And at the same time, similar to any open source project, there's a community around it which is pushing it forward, which is shaping it, which is helping to drive it. Now, I think the crypto has. I would say like a little bit weird definition of community, because the token kind of like a little bit skews everything into more effectively everybody's an investor first and then a community member. And so I think understanding kind of the balance where you sit as an investor, right, which is one position, or as a token holder, and then on the other side, how you sit as a contributor to the ecosystem, right? Because at the end, community is about contributing back and learning together and figuring out how this thing gonna evolve. And so I think to me, that part is always will be important, and it's like I think we haven't been very purposeful about doing that traditionally, and it's kind of just a mix of like token holders effectively and chats for them and interactions for them, versus like, hey, this is a community for effectively contributors who are together working and figuring out how to shape things, and kind of this is people who are interested in effectively this owning this platform together, right? And so I think that like again, it's a general crypto problem, not just Near, where like because of this confusion that every token holder is effectively like kind of an owner, but also the token part is just such a big driver of kind of how you think about things. It kind of creates this massive confusion. So if we can separate the things, right, you can have effectively few different aspects of community. One aspect is effectively the kind of builder, founder community, right? This is the people who are trying to use this technology to continue to build something for the users, for themselves, for somebody else, right? And I think that's definitely important part. We have DevHub that's been pushing this forward. We have Founder Success and Foundation that's doing a lot on kind of founder community side. And I think that's something we need to continue really promoting and advancing. The other side is more kind of creator community, right? This is people, because like big part for anyone who coming in is learning and figuring out what's possible, what are the things, where this is going. And so a lot of it is about creators and kind of content that people can discover and learn from. And and then you have kind of the social fabric, right? So this is people who kind of there to guide you to and kind of find your way into one of these directions. And I think that's the other piece that may or may not be kind of in the future important because like of AI and because of other things. Like that part is gonna become, I would say, like less immediately relevant, but it's still, it's still the piece that creates effectively the vibe of the ecosystem. So that's why like there's a little bit of a map needs to be created, right? Which kind of defines what specifically community. This was to the point. There was Spaces a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot of kind of meme coin communities, right? Who were like, hey, what is done for community, etc. And again, the point is like the meme coin community is like mix of the token holders for meme coin who wanted to go up, as well as people who are just there to, to learn, to hang out, to find like-minded people. And I think again, this confusion is like too big, and it kind of creates this a little bit of sometimes toxic environment. But a lot of people coming in to learn, to figure out what's possible, to see what the future will look like. And so I think that supporting that and continue kind of helping those people forward in their journey will be extremely important. Even as we're hitting millions of users or billions of users on the platform itself.
So you touch on a couple of different things historically that NEAR has done. On the AI agent side, I kind of want to dig into that a little bit later. But NEAR has gone through a lot of transitions over the years on the community side, a lot of experiments, guilds, regional hubs, an on-chain governance experiment we probably won't talk about here. But in your opinion, you've over the past 3.5, 4 years that NEAR's been on mainnet, 4 years or so, just over. What have been the most effective strategies that NEAR has seen, in your opinion, to foster an engaged, self-sustaining community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the reason why we keep experimenting is because it didn't really work well, right, and kind of not sustainable. And again, I think, at least my personal opinion is that like this confusion of roles and purposes have like even if we start with something pretty clear, it kind of diverged. So like guilds started for specifically attracting developers. It was a developer referral program, right? But it ended up becoming a token holder, effectively like support groups, and that started to become more and more kind of confusing and so then we're gonna do hubs, right? Which is like founders and developers supporting them, making them successful, and like that worked to some extent. And there's few different regions where this is working. At the same time, again, in some places it didn't work, and it was hard to evaluate if this is actually working or not, even. And that's one of the bigger problem for a lot of the community efforts. The evaluation framework is not there, right? I think the point is normally in a community, like let's imagine Linux kernel contributors. There's no like, here's the evaluation framework if it's working or not, right? Because it's not based on some specific kind of economic benefit that people get from being in that community, right? They actually come to there because they want to contribute, and either they like this is because they're working for some company, or because they want to build a resume, or because they're interested, or they see this as a future. But like there's no like financial layer there, and that kind of creates a more, I would say, like meritocratic system. And so as soon as you kind of mix in financial incentives, which like on one side is the power of blockchain, like a lot of the normal community building kind of gets screwed up. And so I would say like all of these experiments we've had has been looking for what is actually works, that if you add incentives and you add economy and you add token holders, which again is a fundamental part of this ecosystem and is needed in like it needs to be supported, and we want people to be token holders, like figuring out how to make that work. I would say like, yeah, this is still experiments in progress, right? But The interesting thing is like with meme coins, with new token launches, we see effectively like a partitioning, like a fractal system, right, of the communities sub-created and kind of creating their own culture in this, which I think is also interesting, again, as an experiment to see how different sub-communities then orient around different purposes. And sometimes there's no purpose, right? They're just like, it's fun or they expect this to be profitable. So anyway, I like no clear answer. I think we're going to continue experimenting and see what works. But again, the problem I see is like this mix of kind of incentives and core community like reasons why people want to join has been creating this like that a lot of the every time you start something in the beginning it works and then it stops working, right? It's the same as like grants program, with developer incentives, with every single thing in crypto, or like yield farming, airdrops. First few tries it works because like new mechanism, and then people figure out how to like effectively scam it and
Yep.
so yeah, this is why like this whole space is continuous iterating and figuring out how to balance it. I'm really excited what we can do now with AI, because I think it can create a very different interface. And again, like we can also have hardware attestations for real world, like for people. We can do a lot more mechanisms to really, maybe balance out some of this thing where it always falls into somebody's trying to kind of over optimize for rewards instead of actually trying to serve the purpose.
And you did mention something about like new primitives, right? Things work the first few times because it's novel, people are excited, and then it kind of gets stagnant after that. So you're on Twitter a lot. You're always researching what's happening in the Web3 space. You're pretty up to date on everything. You have to be. So I'm just kind of curious, are there any new and emerging community engagement strategies that you're noticing that are working on other chains, or maybe new meme coins that are really successful that have caught your attention, and maybe you think Near could benefit from any of these?
I mean, meme coins serve as like this attention tool that you can then target at different directions, which is again useful tool, but it also comes with a massive downside of like rug pulls and kind of speculation. So you have. I mean, what we've done with founder success from Near Foundation is being just like a lot more selective and being a lot more prescriptive on how we're approaching things. And it's effectively more of a VC model where you invest in 10 projects instead of trying to foster a community of hundreds. And so then like the bar is way higher, and so you have a lot more kind of quality. But obviously, a lot of projects that coming up from community bottoms up are not able to match that. And so, I've been writing this thing, which I need to actually post, but it's effectively a tactical guide how to do fundraising, especially for founders who are like first-time founders who may not be coming from like Silicon Valley. And so, really, how to upgrade yourself to be a fundraisable founder, because I think that's one of the problems is a lot of founders who coming up from community who are starting kind of grassroots, they don't know, like there is actually a process on how to build your reputation, on how to kind of build your resume effectively, on how to market yourself, on how to approach VCs, on how to build reputation with VCs, and like there's a process there. So part of it is also just like educating that and kind of creating more materials. We have few of the like founder hub, we have Near token hub as well, like different tools as well to just like upskill founders. But yeah, anything that like, I mean, this is why we kind of canceled grants, because it was like very ineffective, and a lot of projects who were distributing grants would not deliver, like most of them, and so kind of we ended up focusing more on quality. And again, naturally, this means a lot of projects who are like in the beginning of their journey are just not being able to get there, and so then okay, how can we use other tools like you can contribute through the Dev Hub to build your reputation. You can, use other avenues to actually kind of level up to get to the level where, for example, you can be supported by top level VCs and other folks. So. But going back to your question, what else is? I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing is like effectively people just going for quality. Like I think most foundations canceled grants programs, and like maybe newer non-launch projects are doing grants, but they effectively running through the same problem right now. because it's so easy to just rotate. Like I can go right now and get grants effectively from all the other foundations and not do anything. Like there's no requirement for me to actually deliver.
I mean, some of those DAO proposals you see, it's
Yeah, yeah, or yeah, like you go for a DAO, you say, hey, let's do a $200 million gaming fund, right? And then like you don't actually need to prove that you are able to deploy that capital, or there's no accountability on return for that investment, right? And especially if it's like 5-7 years in crypto, that's like a century. So by the time actually funds should be returning, everybody already forgot that existed or that project already disappeared.
then it
So
gets found out on chain like a year later, and
but I think it's not even getting found out. Like there is a lot of capital was like supposedly deployed in like 2018, 2019. There's a lot of funds. Like ICP had a fund with Polychain and Andreessen in 2018. Like what happened to that fund? Right? Did that capital even got deployed? So like the problem, yeah, with the space is just like so much kind of noise and things that are not real. So anyway, that's why like yeah, right now at least we focus on quality and kind of, but at the same time we're building more opportunities for permissionless innovation, right? Chain signatures enable something that you couldn't do anywhere else, right? You can build on near and on every chain at the same time. I mean, you guys saw, right? You can connect with MetaMask, you can connect with Bitcoin. Now you target every community. It'll work with Phantom as well, with Solana wallets, with other wallets as well. You can, with AI agents, you'll be able to build for real world. Like you can build, for a restaurant downstairs. You can, build it for a service or for Expedia or for something, and like actually capture a percentage of transactions that are hitting this. So like we're trying to just expand what you can do, lower the barrier for kind of building something interesting and connecting it into the user base, right? Because all of these AI assistants now, as they're getting kind of integrated into all of the applications with consumers we have, now those consumers can actually find your applications across, like instead of trying to like go into Explorer, find the apps, go click connect, figure out what your app doing. So like as they say what they want to do, it'll find your app, it'll find your agent, it'll actually execute it, right? So like how do we lower the barrier on the product side as well, so that you can build just kind of the functionality and the economic value, and then the routing and discovery and users can actually be shared across the whole platform. Again, I'm a technical guy, I'm a product guy, so my answer to everything ends up being technology and product. It's not, it's definitely not a full picture, and that's why we have Marcus, that's why we have marketing team, that's why we have other people who are in the ecosystem who are doing a lot of other efforts as well and experimenting. I mean, and so we can learn from that as well and see what works.
And you mentioned something, not to sidetrack too much, but I'm sure there are founders, developers in the audience that can really gain value. I mean, how often do you have Illia here talking about community? So one question that I'd like to ask you, you said you were writing something on how to sell yourself as a founder to VCs. I mean, you kind of built Near from the ground up, you and Alex and a team of others alongside, and now Near's grown on a massive scale. I mean, this is our fourth NearCon, and the turnouts are always really good. Like you've built this community, of course, with different teams. So on that aspect, from where you started to where you came on building a community around Near effectively, maybe top level as we're strapped for time, but what are some of the top tips you can give some people in the audience today on like how to really kind of cultivate that?
Well, I mean, the high level attention is all you need.
Yeah.
So, so effectively, like there's a few things. I mean, on the VC side, I'll post this, or we'll talk about it later. On the community side, again, a lot of things we've done is experimentation, but some things worked really well. So we did whiteboard series early on, which was effective tool for us to learn, as well as like effective tool for everyone to learn. And I think like fundamentally, that's why I kind of talk about purpose of community. If you detach it from a token, is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to share. It's an opportunity to mentor somebody. It's an opportunity to be mentored. It's a place where you find people and relate to them, right? That's the kind of fundamental reason for a community. Like everything else is like, extra. But like those are fundamental things. And so what you want to do, like, as you're building it is create like this environment where people can learn from each other, where they can feel that they're among, friends, among kind of this, people they can hang out, right? Especially in crypto, it's been a thing, right, where it's like it's actually becoming harder and harder to talk to, for example, people who are outside of crypto in many ways because they don't understand what you're doing, which is for us also to figure out how to bridge that gap. But and I think we are actually on the way there as we're rolling some of this stuff out. But a lot of it is about like if you're organizing a meetup, if you're organizing an event, like that's an opportunity for people to find like-minded people, find your co-founder, find somebody to build with, find your next job, right? And so that's what people are looking for. And so how do you use that as a like what tools effectively can you use to foster that? Well, obviously IRL events, content that is interesting, that is authentic to yourself, and then leverage that to effectively bring people together, educate them, have them share themselves, right? And so kind of create this loop.
So I want to get into the AI section just before I open up the floor to anybody to have any questions, because you did reveal on stage how Near's vision for Near AI is going to kind of add massive value on a global scale. But I'm really interested in kind of your vision for it impacting on the community side of things. But just really quickly, I mean, if there's anything in your mind that stands out over the years, what's one piece of feedback you may have received from the community? You might have seen it on Twitter, the forum, whatever, that really just resonated with you over the years and really maybe paved the way for how Near's community is being shaped today.
I mean, there's one piece of feedback that right away came to my mind, which is haven't shaped yet, but something that I think people frequently feel like Near has been pivoting a lot and kind of changing direction. That's a feedback that I've received a lot, and it's hard for me to kind of internalize it, even though I understand where it's coming from, because it feels like our vision is the same, right? The kind of the core of what we're trying to do is the same, and we're just looking for tools and ways to get this in front of people, right? And I think for community, maybe what I'm realizing kind of from that is it's been hard to kind of follow that, because the kind of whatever approach we take, right, communities kind of redirects there and kind of pushes with bigger energy. And if we are still trying to find directions and we're kind of going into multiple at the same time to test that, it's really hard to really kind of focus on that, create focused content and kind of education machine onboarding, etc. And I think that's something that, again, we're trying to get a lot more concrete with AI now, because it is fundamentally what's going to enable everyone to use this technology. Like Web3 wallets, all of this, like DeFi degeneracy, it is a small subset of people in the world that will be doing that. But actually transacting, doing actions, interacting with each other, that's something everybody does every day. And so an AI can kind of facilitate that, and blockchain can back that up and create effectively instruments to do this. And so I think for kind of going forward, right, this is a direction we're really leaning into. And so this is really the time to kind of, for everyone, align into that direction and really kind of push and bring more people in and educate why the system important, why the current status quo, right, when you're using ChatGPT and you're moving, like I go to another country, it doesn't work there, right? Like you ask it a question, it doesn't answer you. It's been blocked, and so like that's an opportunity to really educate and kind of showcase the alternative that is user owned, that is focused on their own success. And so I think that's right now kind of the opportunity is here.
Amazing. And on that point, I mean, Near is pioneering the intersection of blockchain and AI. I mean, now on the community side of things, it would be interesting to hear how you see this shaping the future of community engagement and building and empowerment. But at the same time, AI has the potential to centralize certain aspects of information. Like how do you also see the kind of prevention of adverse effects, right? Like people also want to feel a sense of ownership when they come into a community. There's a human behind the engagement team, if you will, that's really driving this community, telling them where to go, getting them to raid, getting them to forming this cult. So how do you feel like there would be prevention against AI agents and kind of the notion they may have?
Well, I don't know if so. This is actually I tweeted about this. I feel there is a lot of people who are kind of scared of AI in many ways, right? Be that replacing their job or becoming effectively dominating or killing everyone, right? And so there's a range of scare here. And for me, like I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot. We're doing a lot of work to to mitigate a lot of these risks
Yep.
ourselves on kind of technical side. But at the same time, I think there's a fundamental shift that will happen, right? So first shift is for some things we actually don't care. Like for some things you don't care how it's done, you want it done, right? That's kind of the idea of intents. Intents say I want this done, and then I don't really care how it's going to be fulfilled, right? For all of that, it will be replaced by AI. Just take this, and it will take some time. Some things will not work immediately, but that's effectively going to be done. For some things, we care about the process of how it's done. So this is the interesting example for art. Just as a side note, we when we see like everybody thought visual art will be non AI. We always but the visual art we actually care about the end result, right? We look at the picture. For music, we care about how people play it. We care about the process. And so there's interesting things depending on what process you're involved with, how exactly we feel about it. So sports, for example, nobody will want to watch sport of AI, of robots. We will want to watch people play sports because we don't really care. Like yes, score interesting, but like you don't actually care about score. You care about watching the sports. So there's a whole set of things, including human engagement and interaction in real world, where we care about the interaction itself. We don't really care. Like yes, I talked with 50 people, whatever. You care about the interaction itself. You care about being in the group. You care about finding people with common interests and hanging out with them. And so I think that part is going to continue staying kind of the most human part we have. And again, there's like pretty much effectively for anything you're interacting with right now, think about it. Do you care about the result or do you care about the process? And if it's a process, it's going to be people. And if it's a result, it's going to be automated. So just get over that. And so the question then is, I mean, there will be a lot more time, our time spent on these things where we care about the process, right? It will be a lot more time spent, and we already see this, like people spending more and more time in group chats, in kind of talking to each other on comments for Instagram posts, etc. Right? Like that's where people spending time and kind of really engaging and kind of building effectively communities around those things. And so, so I think AI will just you can stitch together, for example, a conversation from different posts from like-minded people and create kind of like ephemeral community on the spot, and then you can like birth it into something more permanent, right? So like AI will be a tool then to actually navigate this information maze and find people you want to hang out with. And so this will be more of a tool to facilitate the process, but the process itself you want other people to engage with. Now, for some things, the AI itself will be the cult, right? And like the Truth Terminal is a great example where people following AI and kind of that on itself is a thing. But part of the charm there is actually we know this AI and kind of we want to see how far and how unhinged can it be, right? So I think all of those things are part of our psychology, how we really interact with the world.
It could be the fact that everybody just ends up having their own AI agent and they just interact with each other, and there's actually no more humans talking to each other anymore. But cool. So I really appreciate you all being here. Like I said, I want to be mindful of everybody's time, and I wanted this to be an open session as well. So if anybody has any feedback, any questions, current state of NEAR ecosystem, the future of NEAR and AI, and how that's going to impact community, how you can get involved, feel free.
Thank you so much. Visiting from Zurich, and I will have a high-level question. I hope that's okay. It's not on a product level or anything. I've been in crypto now for many years, and there's these cycles, and there's new innovation coming in, but there's a lot of turnover, a lot of projects rise, disappear again. I know you've mentioned a lot about it, but if you would pin it down to maybe the essence, like where does NEAR position itself over the future? How do you stay relevant, and where do you actually add value where it's needed? Because I think, and you said it yourself, is sometimes it's a zero-sum game between chains. They're competing each other more than like helping each other out. Where has NEAR its unique standpoint in this overall picture, where it can blend in the future and stay relevant? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, high level, we just talked through that as a keynote, but the near itself, right? We want to be powering this future that's happening with AI, right? Again, AI will change how we interact with computers, how we interact with each other, how we interact with internet, with services, and it'll change in kind of very drastic ways. And kind of all of the existing interfaces, all of the existing services will change as well. Like there's no point of anymore going to Google. There's no point of figuring out how, like finding whatever plumber or buying a bike or something in the physical world, right? You know, planning this trip, etc. All of that, one way or another, will actually completely transform. And so we want to power this transformation, both on the AI side to make sure that AI is owned by you, and on the like settlement side, on transactional side, which is what blockchain powers and kind of the interactions. Now, as part of that, kind of we're stepping beyond what, you know, like this layer one kind of zero-sum war that's been raging for past whatever years, and instead saying, hey, that doesn't matter. What matters is actually giving users and developers the experience where all of these things are united, right? That's where the chain abstraction coming in. That's where, again, intense example where you can connect with MetaMask, you can connect with Bitcoin wallet, and you can transact across any chain. Like it doesn't matter anymore for the user that Near is powering that. It matters that they got the product that they wanted, right? So we're trying to I mean, that's why we're trying to transcend this like the label that layer one's kind of got and kind of how everybody thinks about this, and really become this fabric that connects both Web3 and Web2 and enables AI to really kind of interact with it seamlessly.
Hey, Ilya. Is this on? Yeah. So I wanted to ask a question about the future of the near infrastructure. So I think right now for a lot of builders, Near has provided very cheap transaction fees that allows to record a lot of data and a very fast block time, which in some cases can create some difficulties to indexing information because blocks are happening, you know,
We'll
very
make it
fast.
faster.
Exactly.
200 milliseconds.
So for exponential growth and even more data being recorded, and do you think it may be worth or is a potential upgrade in the protocol level for facilitating this integration with other toolings, or it's the tools that needs to be better doing its implementation?
So Near is a sharded blockchain. You need to actually shard your indexer. So each Near like shard, you need to have a separate machine per shard to index it, because yes, each shard will set, like effectively each shard of Near is Solana, and so you need to have enough capacity. Like right now we have 6 shards, so you need to have, imagine you're running on 6 Solanas right now. So, and like I mean, Bowen's team is working hard to make each shard effectively throughput of Solana. And then, you know, 6 shard now, you know, 10 times 10 by the end of year. So you need to have infrastructure that actually scales together with the network. But yes, I mean, we need like more libraries, but you can use a lot of, I think Near Core itself allows to build indexing on top of it. And so you can like configure it to run on different shards.
But for example, in transaction fees, do you think like maybe a little higher transaction fees may create a better, more sustainable use of resourcing, or you think it's like well set?
Well, I think so my ideal, and this is like something as part of longer term house of stake, ideally actually the transaction fees should be bounded to compute resource costs, not to like just some fixed Near price, right? And price in Near right now. And so then the other part is actually, you know, having like there is a break even number of transactions. I think it's like 11,000 per second. And so as you know, as we're getting more and more throughput, it's actually like there is a, I mean, and maybe we can configure some of those parameters, but I think the idea is like this is totally possible where like transactions are paying effectively for all the costs of the validators.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, thanks all.
Thanks, Ilya. Thanks, Marcus. Sean from Brooklyn. Just had a question around, it seems as though crypto and Web3 folks think a lot about AI, but AI folks obviously don't think a ton about blockchain. Just curious as to what Near's plan is to reach folks that are prompt engineers and AI engineers, design engineers, so that they can, I guess, take advantage of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, really good question. I would say like some people are thinking, it's not a majority, but we do have actually a bunch of projects who are building in kind of DAI space who are coming from AI space, right? Like there's ex-Google engineers, ex-Meta engineers who are like, yes, we need to decentralize this and not let it to be run in centralized environment. Now, the question is actually like, how do we do this more? Well, what we announced is we're doing research competitions. So this is actually going like to AI researchers, not Web3 people, and offering them resources, compute, data. We have crowdsourcing platform running, which is using blockchain micropayments to pay for work. We have, distributed resource allocation for GPUs running on blockchain that they can get access to. And all of this is hidden effectively for them to start, and kind of they just get credits to use this. Right? Similarly, for AI assistant, the way it actually executes actions is by calling specific agents. And so prompt engineers and kind of in general engineers who want to build specific functionality, specific services can go and add this. And each agent has a public key and private key that you can sign transactions with, right? It has effectively its own account for payments and for other interactions. So like all of that infrastructure is just there for them, and you have native money, native effectively asset management for any of the code they're writing. Some of them will not use this. Some of them will, learn how it works and start interacting. So I think we're planning a hackathon around for AI agent builders to also do that, engage with kind of this more wider range of tools, right, that they're available for them right now.
Hey, Ilya. There's a question that I've been wanting to do for a while. Like, you have always been at the forefront of research, right? Like, and I know also by experience that when you are doing research, you generally can see way in the future, mostly because what happens is that like products right now are using technology from 10 years ago, right? And you keep talking about like being scared about like the future of AI and the future of AI and the future of AI. And I'm actually very happy with my Copilot, for example, right now. And I'm very happy with my AI. So what is that you're seeing that I cannot see that scares you so much about AI and this data? Like specifically, because generally you have been given, this. So for example, like, I don't know, like I wake up one day and then.
Yeah, and then your code has an NPM installed that has injection to steal everybody's keys. And that's because Copilot was trained on some data that injected effectively that when you type specific thing, it entered the code and you just didn't look.
But as a company, as for example, like Google, wouldn't I be already creating systems such that that cannot happen, right? Like I will be making an AI that, because otherwise I will automatically lose all my clients, right?
Well, I mean, you can try, but it's the same as any code, right? If you haven't seen it, how do you know it has covered that vulnerability? That's why we use open source for most critical software, because if you don't know what's going on there, if there's not thousands of people looking at this code, you have no idea, and in this case, data and how data is ingested and processed. So an example that is for sure happening right now is people are posting stuff on forums in like text color that is effectively invisible for human eye, effectively prompt injections into models. This is happening for training data. Like the next crawl that's going to go into training data will have malicious, effectively sleeper agent training data that will affect how models work in next year. Like there's actually like research already on how to inject effectively sleeper data that activates based on the specific conditions, specific prompt or specific date in your prompt. Right, so you can effectively program future of how AI will work by just doing some data, like data posting on public forums, which then gets scraped and put into training data. Right, so this is like not even. I mean, and yes, Google and OpenAI should be on the lookout and do this, but they also don't have infinite amount of people. Not everybody's looking into something. Now, what the more like this is more like security, and there's a lot of like I can go to more examples. The problem is like like I'm a little bit afraid of giving people ideas on how to do that. The other side is, so for example, right now, so another security example on the other side. Right now, you can use ChatGPT to actually analyze code and find vulnerabilities. That's already possible right now. Like I've actually found vulnerabilities using ChatGPT. And you have no idea who is using this code, like who is using that and how, and what vulnerabilities it's finding. And they can actually limit, like OpenAI can effectively limit which code it will allow to process or not, right? So, this can be also like a random engineer in OpenAI deciding to do that and pushing like a couple lines of code of changes to their code base, right? Which like not easy to detect that this is actually affecting it in a major way, right? And so now, like only some subset of people can use these tools to actually find vulnerabilities, and everybody else can't, right? And that's a very, very scary situation because now they can use it, they can leverage it for all kind of malicious ways, right? So again, this is just example of like the more accessible this is, the more available this is, the more inspectable it is, the more on equal footing we are. Again, this is why open source effectively wins every time. Like over some period of time, open source always wins because it's like it's inspectable. Everybody can, you know, trust it. They can look at it. They can verify that it does what it does. And if there's some vulnerability, like the interesting situation was like some library in that SSH was using, right, got malicious kind of injection. And somebody was testing it in their new upgrade for their database, and they found 200 millisecond delay that wasn't there in their benchmark. And like that prevented effectively all of us having 0-day vulnerability on SSH, where somebody, nobody knows who, would have master access to everybody's server, right? Like that's open source. How many of those, like imagine a Google, like somebody working at Google just passed that change and it's like went unnoticed, and now somebody else has access to all the Google servers or has access to everything. So again, this is like security side. The freedom of speech is the other side, right? Like they're sitting in San Francisco and deciding effectively what in all of the world people can and cannot see, and I don't like it's effectively deciding, and they kind of required to do so. Like they're deciding what effectively all of the world will think, right? Because like they can, like, so the good example was, this is something I've done. Like I filtered a bunch of data in training the models that were responding on google.com, and I did it not because of some like malicious decision, but because like the data from Fox News or from Alex Jones' website has a lot of conspiracy theory, which was hurting my results and evaluation. So I just cut out all of that websites because that fixed my model, and in turn made the model very liberal, right? Not because I'm liberal, but because I just cut out all of the data that comes from the kind of conspiracy websites, which somehow mixed with Republican website. And so, but that's an example of like you effectively influencing what people are going to see and how people are going to see it. And like some of it can be literally non-malicious just because of some decision making, which you have no idea how that's made. Some of it can be malicious. Some of this can be political view. Some of this can be U.S.-centric decision to do this or that, right? Which we will not know. Again, Patriot Act is a great example of government saying there's we're going to do it for greater good, and then misusing it in all kinds of ways. So that's why, like, again, like there is a reason why we're in blockchain space and actually like building technology that's resistant to anyone's influence and visible, and everybody can inspect it. And even if somebody influenced it, you can fork it and get it back on track. So similar thing we need for AI. Similar thing we need to effectively kind of interconnect how we process the information, how we engaging with this intelligence that's been built.
We're now talking about billions of people and trillions of agents, but we also
Go
know
faster.
But we also know that getting people and getting agents probably requires slightly different things. Do you see the path to trillion agents through billion people, or they are completely separate things, and we can get to trillions of agents without getting to billions of people?
So it's a flywheel. It's effectively, the more users are using, the more effectively intents and requests and asks they have. The more asks they have, the more agents there needs to be to satisfy those asks. And so you kind of have like a, and then more things you can do, the more people want to use it, right? It's effectively like, I mean, we're kind of rebuilding the inventory of internet through this. And the cool thing is the agents themselves, they can build themselves too, right? So, and they can make sure they're correct, and some agents can be just navigating internet and doing this kind of effectively in the browser. Some agents, can replicate, etc. So like, but we are kind of replicating and like it's the same thing with like there's trillion web pages on internet, so we're kind of rebuilding that in a new way.
Am I right that it's a phased approach? At some point, it's going to be an agent in itself, and agents will propagate agents. But in order for us to kickstart the flywheel, we need people that will be deploying these agents and using them, and then it's going to have life of its own.
Yeah, so I mean, we need the AI assistant inside applications like Sweat to actually use this to create requests. that generates enough usage to then get a bunch of developers interested in building agents, because hey, a bunch of Sweat users are like asking for this and that, and they're willing to pay with Sweat here and there. So like, let me build this, let me build that, and then now there's more functionality. We can integrate into more applications, more traffic, more users. It also increases Sweat's retention because people now come in every day because they're like, oh, it actually can ask, answer my medical questions. It can, help me build a diet plan so that I can walk more. And so you can kind of just build that, flywheel.
Thanks. So to have more effective AI agents, you need, data from interactions with humans, etc. So, like, how do we as a community look to incentivize the community that we have here now to really align with, let's say, near AI, to be better beta testers, I suppose, to have more effective AI agents? What would you say, how to kind of align exactly with near AI?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I wouldn't say I have like fully sought out answer yet, but that is definitely the direction we need to figure out. So again, we just launched kind of the chat.near.ai. This is like alpha version, but you can already start, using it, testing it, and effectively kind of in this flywheel model, like as you actually try to ask it to do something, it may not do it, right? It has very little functionality right now, but that creates enough data to say, hey, somebody wants this to be done, right? So let's say like, hey, I want to plan a travel to Korea for 5 days, and I want to do this and that. And like right now, there's no integrations with traveling services and agents, and so it doesn't do it. It's like gives you a plan, but it doesn't actually execute. And so, but that records as like, hey, there's a travel intent, and so now there is interest for developers to build this agent. And so we're going to effectively run a hackathon based on the intents people provide to then build these things, and then like actually re-engage, hey, now you can actually do it. There's like literally a button that says, buy, like here's all the tickets, here's all the hotels, and you can do it in one click, right? So like that's a flywheel.
So if I don't trust OpenAI with my data, why should I trust you? Or me, right? Because I'm also part of NEAR. Why should they trust? Why should I trust myself with my data?
Yeah, so the kind of what Alex Kirana was talking, the new model that's used is called trusted execution environment. So this is actually an isolation inside your CPU and effectively for GPU as well, for like actual compute chip you have, that doesn't allow whoever runs the computer to actually inspect what's going on inside. And so now you are able to effectively encrypt your request, send it directly inside that environment. So no single person will ever be able to decrypt and access that. and then it runs inside an environment. The agent runs, maybe it scheduled calls. If you're actually calling out into like, Expedia, for example, well, Expedia needs to get your information, but from perspective of what happened inside AI inference, inside how it processed your data, et cetera, all of that stays there and kind of encrypted with your key, and only you can have access to it. Again, this is something that we can do it because we have all the kind of blockchain infrastructure to do encryption, decryption, to have private keys for people, and we have micropayments attached to every effectively interaction with this secure enclave. And so this is all, again, this is work in progress, but this is kind of the model that we see. Now, inside this, one warning, like Intel and NVIDIA effectively have, some ability to manufacture, like effectively their own chips, and so we are trusting them. But like for them to violate how they actually design chips is like a lot bigger problem than, for example, OpenAI keep confusing, whose logs are where in their database.
All right, cool. Yeah, we have time for one more.
Hi, Illia. Nice to meet you. We're actually at tackling the data aggregation and validity problem, and we're in your accelerator. So thanks for having us.
Awesome.
So part of the decision for us going to NEAR was, frankly speaking, also part of your background in AI. And compared to, I guess, all these new AI chains, I'd love to hear in your own words, like what do you think will really distinguish NEAR from all the other AI chains that are coming up?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. The core is like our commitment to kind of really, as I was saying, like create this flywheel of usage and coordinating all of these efforts. So the challenge right now is like everybody's doing a piecemeal of products around kind of AI ecosystem, right? You have data, somebody's doing compute, somebody's doing training, and the thing is like when you go to OpenAI, they do all of this in one, right? You kind of come in and you have the full product, you have the full developer platform, you have user platform, you have everything. And like the challenge with blockchains, historic, not just even in AI side, in blockchain side, has been that you come and you have like a swap here, a lending there, I was trying to find like for Uniswap v3 a auto rebalancing tool, and I was like, where do I find that? Like you cannot find it from Uniswap, right? You cannot find it, like you Google it, there's a bunch of stuff, like some of the websites are closed. So what we're trying to do is really put it all together, right? To create a platform where all of the tools are available, all of the data, all of the compute, all of the models, inference. We're creating competitions to attract AI researchers. We have, hackathons for AI agents. We're working across, Bite and Olus and Questflow, who are actually providing AI frameworks to really put them together. We're putting this into AI Assistant, integrating it into all the wallets, and creating this really kind of interconnected environment where all of this actually can be successful. And so that's kind of the integration. The blockchain itself, can power this for, billions of transactions. It can handle this through intents to like interconnect services. So like we're building kind of every single piece, or we're working with the ecosystem to build a piece and integrate it into like cohesive picture.
Amazing. Thank you all, everybody, for coming. That wraps it up for this session. Really appreciate you all being here. I hope you got some value from the time today with Illia, and looking forward to seeing you all around the conference. Thank you.